we're all super tough, and we're Teamsters, and we're truck drivers, and we can do anything. But the reality is the heat stroke can hit anybody, and it hits fast.
Workers across vastly different industries are reaching the same conclusion. If the future of work is being rewritten, they intend to have a hand in writing it.
Oh, we're a progressive cannabis company, and welcome to our humble blah blah blah
Utopia.
Cannabis facility. Yeah, this is utopia, but we're going to treat our workers like garbage, just like any other company. I know. Listen, I could go on about weed jokes, but I'm not going to, because this is serious business.
I got an older cousin who's in the local, so he was always been telling me, hey, when you graduate high school, you got to get into the local. It's the best thing ever. And I listened to him.
There's a moment in the first movie where a group of them get together to tell a troubled kid to stop breaking and exploding them. And the way the toys do it is almost like straight out of Secrets of a Successful Organizer.
It was awful from everything that I've read. In the factories, they didn't have plumbing. They're working with all these different chemicals and whatnot in the textile factories, and they didn't have protective gear. The foremen were very... what's the word I'm looking for? Very unkind to them is a nice way to put it.
I don't think we have a theme this week, do we?
No, really. No, there's not a lot of shows talking about the same topic per se, but there's a lot of shows talking about some really important stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing that struck me when we were looking at the list of things was we'd kind of had not exactly a break, but things definitely leading up to the holidays, I think, got a bit sort of quieter. And it was just really interesting to me how it was like, wow, we have like 2 hours worth of show here in terms of the topics, right? I mean, it just seemed, it was like when we were looking at what to choose, I thought, geez, this is really hard.
Well, and you're going to see that in the shows you should know as well, because the shows we picked for the clips for the show, they're all really great. They're talking about really important stuff. And then we'll get into shows you should know, and it's all really great. They're talking about really important stuff. This is the struggle about putting this show together, is trying to find just 4 or 5 shows that we can take clips from, because so many of them are so good and they're talking about so many important things.
Any thoughts from you, Patrick, before we move into the shows themselves?
It's quite a mix this week. I mean, yeah, like you said, we haven't landed on any of the same topics twice, but we really sort of travel around the network.
I wanted to start with Roswell Hub because the heat wave has been affecting certainly a lot of people across the country. I know those of us on the East Coast definitely were hit by it, so I thought that seemed like a good one to start with.
Oh, yeah, and I'm down here in Florida right now. I'm 2 weeks away from getting back to the Pacific Northwest, and I am counting the minutes, trust me. And it is brutal. I mean, as somebody from the Pacific Northwest looking at the people who are outside working in 90-degree heat that feels like 110, I can only imagine what it's doing to their bodies. And this is something that David and Greg Kerwood talk about in this show. Now, we don't often have Roswell Hub clips on the weekly because they usually talk specifically about working at UPS. There are a couple of Teamsters. They work for UPS. And the stuff that they're talking about in this episode applies to anyone who has to work outside in really hot weather. The other thing I really love about this episode is they're talking about all these provisions that the company is responsible for. That's the difference between working union and working non-union, because with a union contract, you can actually put provisions in the contract saying what the company is responsible for. If you work a non-union, good luck with that.
What is going on, everybody? So today I have Greg Kerwood on Local 25 in Boston. And as of last week, we just talked about the heat wave coming through, and a lot of people were affected. We're going to be talking about some of the stories that happened this week, and then also some more rights of what you can do to fight this heat wave. So, Greg, this past week, a lot of stories started coming in about people going to the hospital, everything else. I mean, what have you been hearing as far as the last week goes?
Well, it's definitely hot, excessively hot over most of the country. But, we had three drivers drop out in my center this week. We say it, and I'm not sure people understand how serious it is, but heat stroke is not a joke. It's not a game, and it's not something you should try to self-diagnose. If you're having symptoms, if you're dizzy, if you're vomiting, if you're any of those things, you're getting chills, your body stops sweating, you're feeling incoherent, get yourself to the hospital for the love of God. And I know the knee-jerk response, because we're all wonderfully tough people, is to say, no, I'm fine, no, I'm fine. But the reality is you're not fine, and you don't know you're not fine.
And I'm going to share a clip real quick with Danny Arlen. He had a crazy story that happened up north, so I'm going to pop it in right here.
This last Wednesday, July 1st, I was on my way back to our building, came across a vehicle on the side of the road, and behind that vehicle was one of our UPS drivers, bent over a guardrail, appeared to be vomiting. I rolled down the window and yelled over to the individual and said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "No." So I immediately pulled over, put on my hazards, and went over to the individual. And as I approached him, I could see clearly that he was in distress. He was vomiting. He was shaking. He was pale to the skin. He couldn't stand upright because he was cramping up so bad, and even indicated that his left arm was starting to go numb. I immediately called 911 and requested an ambulance and told them what was going on. And I stayed with him until the ambulance got there. While we were waiting, we were talking, and he indicated to me that he had been in communication with the building since approximately 10:30 in the morning, and had told them that he didn't think he was going to be able to finish his day. And about 3:30ish, the driver had been in contact with the supervisor through text message saying that he needed to come off the road, and he was not doing well. And the reply from the supervisor was, "You can't tough it out until we can get somebody out there to help you and, get to you." And he said, "No." And the supervisor's reply was SMH, which is short for shake my head. Once the ambulance came and took the individual to the hospital, saying that he was showing signs of heat stroke, I returned back to the facility and grabbed another member and asked him to come with me to witness a conversation with the supervisor. I went up to the supervisor and informed him as to what I had witnessed. And I asked him, I said, "Why, if he contacted you at 10:30 in the morning, would you leave him out there?"
So, Greg, with the heat and everything else, we do have rights to combat this stuff. Now, let's say I walk into the building and there's just no ice or water. I mean, what should I do in that situation?
You should find a steward immediately, let them know. The steward should be going into management and demanding that they go buy ice, that they go buy water. They're contractually obligated to provide certainly water if there's no drinkable water, and they should be providing ice. They have their obligations, and it's up to you and anyone else to make sure that you're reporting that stuff to your stewards so they know and so they can act on it. You have a right to follow the company's directions in cooling down, and their own directions include taking extra breaks when it's excessively hot. So you have a right to cool down breaks, but you have to let them know, send a message in the dyad, "Hey, I'm feeling the heat, taking a cool down break. Get yourself to an AC place or somewhere shady if you're out in the middle of nowhere. And take some time, drink some water, and cool yourself down and see how your body reacts. And if it doesn't bounce back, then, you need to take further action. And I know, we're all super tough, and we're Teamsters and we're truck drivers and we can do anything. But the reality is the heat stroke can hit anybody, and it hits fast.
So, Greg, right now, with the buyouts that just happened and everybody just seems to be overloaded, it seems to be a ball that just gets worse and worse. You got people getting injured, people out on disability, people, just people quitting, We're seeing a lot of this going on, and it's just, if you walk into work, you're looking at down the barrel of a 10, 12, 14-hour day. I mean, what's your thoughts on all this?
What I would say, and what I say to all the drivers who, get in that frenzy or that panic, is I don't know anybody who can do more than one stop at a time. And that's your responsibility, to work safely to the best of your ability, follow the methods, and get yourself home in the same condition you came in with. The rest of it is the company's problem. They want to give you 300 stops or they want to give you 10. You do the job the same way and you do it correctly. They made this decision. They decided to lay people off. They decided not to hire people. They insist that they're fully staffed. It's all their issue. It's not our issue. Our issue is to work safely, follow the methods, fair day's work for a fair day's pay, take our breaks and our lunches when we're supposed to, and get ourselves back to our families in good shape. That's our concern.
Love you guys, and I'll see you soon.
Hi, this is Steve Matthews, the host from Riverside Rank and File. We're part of a network with more than 200 labor radio shows and podcasts from across the country and around the world. Find us at laborradionetwork.org. Thank you.
So let's talk about labor force. Mike does a great job of putting together these little segments about different topics. And he's been doing something interesting recently. Instead of releasing a full half-hour show, he's releasing the individual segments once per day. So we're getting multiple episodes of labor force in a given week. And in this episode, he's really focused on the ways companies are continuing to search for methods to cut labor costs and how workers are responding. And guess how workers are responding? They are organizing.
I'm curious. We should maybe say, get somebody from Labor Force at one of our weekly network meetings. But I'm curious about how that's working as a tactic, as to whether they're getting more listens or different kinds of listens. It's an interesting technique.
Yeah, well, one thing I can say about Mike is he does cover a lot of ground every week. He talks about the economy. He talks about how working people are struggling. And he covers activity in the labor world. So breaking it up into segments and releasing them on a daily basis is giving different segments of his audience a chance to really focus on those things. I'd be really interested to find that out too.
We've always been told that technology would make work better. AI would eliminate tedious tasks. The gig economy would create flexibility. Video games would become the dream career. Global supply chains would deliver prosperity. But for many workers, the reality has looked very different. As companies search for new ways to cut labor costs and maximize efficiency, workers are increasingly arriving at the same conclusion. If they want a voice in the future of work, they'll have to organize for it. That reality is playing out in California, where Uber and Lyft drivers have cleared a major hurdle toward forming a statewide union. Thanks to a new legal framework, drivers have gathered enough support to move closer to collective bargaining, despite remaining classified as independent contractors. It's a remarkable development in an industry that spent years insisting gig workers could never organize because they weren't employees. Drivers say unpredictable pay, rising expenses, opaque algorithms, and sudden account deactivations have made collective representation more necessary than ever. And it's not just gig workers. At the Port of Crockett, California, members of the International Longshore and Warehouse Union are on strike against sugar producer C.H. Sugar, in the first dispute of its kind there in decades. Workers argue that contract negotiations have stalled over wages, staffing, and working conditions, demonstrating that even in long-established industries, labor conflicts remain very much alive. After decades in which strikes became increasingly rare, workers are once again showing they're willing to withhold their labor when negotiations break down. At the same time, another story illustrates the complicated relationship between AI and employment. Ford reportedly laid off engineers as part of its push toward greater AI adoption, only to find that replacing experienced workers isn't always as simple as executives imagine. According to reporting highlighted by Futurism, the company has begun rehiring some engineers after discovering that AI couldn't fully substitute for the institutional knowledge, judgment, and problem solving that skilled employees bring to complex engineering work. It's a reminder that while AI can be an incredibly powerful tool, it doesn't erase the value of human expertise. Companies may discover that cutting experienced workers too aggressively creates problems that technology alone can't solve. And perhaps nowhere is that tension more visible than in the video game industry. Workers at Rockstar Games, the studio behind the enormously successful Grand Theft Auto franchise, are seeking formal union recognition after last year's dismissal of dozens of union members. The campaign comes as Grand Theft Auto 6 is expected to become one of the biggest entertainment releases in history, with billions of dollars reportedly generated through pre-orders alone. Workers argue that if the company can produce record-breaking profits, then people creating those games deserve meaningful workplace protections, collective bargaining rights, and a voice in decisions that affect their livelihoods. Rockstar maintains that the previous dismissals were related to the sharing of confidential information, not union activity, a dispute that continues through legal proceedings. Taken together, these stories point toward a broader shift in the labor market. Technology continues to reshape industries. AI continues to transform how work is organized. Companies continue searching for ways to lower labor costs and increase productivity. But workers aren't simply watching these changes happen. From rideshare drivers navigating algorithmic management, to dock workers protecting long-standing labor standards, to engineers demonstrating that human knowledge still matters, to video game developers organizing inside one of the world's most profitable entertainment companies. Workers across vastly different industries are reaching the same conclusion. If the future of work is being rewritten, they intend to have a hand in writing it.
Hey, this is Joshua Town from the Solidarity Report podcast. I'm proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network with more than 200 labor radio shows and podcasts across the country and around the globe. The Labor Radio Podcast Network, where the working people speak. You can find us at laborradionetwork.org.
All right, next up we've got Workers Mike, and first of all we should do a shout out to the folks at the Workers Mike because they helped us out last week, Harold, didn't they? With one of our one of our news stories we were looking for with the Labor Heritage Foundations. Want to tell folks about that? It was kind of cool.
Yeah, so I like to say that the news arm of the Labor Heritage Foundation covers labor in the arts and the arts in labor. And one of the things that definitely falls into both those sides is our old friend Scabby the Rat. The big, giant, inflatable rat, right? Everybody knows him when they see him. So, Patrick, you and Chris actually went to the place that makes Scabby the Rat recently, right?
That's right. Inflatable Images in Brunswick, Ohio. We'll have a segment on that coming soon.
And you got to know the owner of Inflatable Images. The owner gave you a call just kind of out of the blue, right, Chris?
I got this call on my phone from Dave Sherba, and the name sort of rang a bell, but I couldn't remember who it was. And then I realized who it was, and I actually thought Patrick and I must be in trouble because I was thinking, why would the Scabby the Rat guy be calling me?
You're going to have Scabby the Rat outside your house.
A lot of things crossed my mind, but no, he was calling because the long, complicated story, but basically there was another inflatables company that had been asked to create an inflatable that would basically cross a picket line that was being, I was going to say manned, but actually, how would we call it? There was like two Scabby the Rats and a fat cat in front of I think it's a Cadillac dealership in somewhere in Ohio, suburban Chicago, Tinsley.
Chicago.
Tinsley. And the inflatable company got there, saw all the scabbies, and said, "Yeah, we're not going to do this," and called Dave to let him know that they were honoring not his picket line. He just makes the rats, but it was some. Actually, I still don't know which union it was or unions.
I think there's an auto mechanics union out in the Chicago area, and that they may have been involved. But anyways, Chris gets this story. And we're like, oh my God, this is inflatable solidarity. This is solidarity between these two companies that make inflatable characters.
Inflatables.
Yeah, I guess you could call them. We have to report on this for the Labor Heritage Foundation, but we need a picture. We need some more information. So what do? We call the number one. No, I'm not going to say that because of Jerry. We call one of the shows in the network that's based in Chicago, the Workers Mike, and we say, hey guys, do you know anything about this strike? And within 5 hours.
Yep.
Yeah, they had a picture over to us and some information. And the other thing I love about the Workers Mike guys, they just have a good time.
So,
and that's, you can actually roll right into the clip there because they start cracking on one of them for playing softball and that kind of thing.
But that's all by way of saying that actually this episode of Workers Mike has nothing to do with that. What's this episode actually about?
So, the Teamsters have organized a cannabis company in Illinois, and it is a big company. And you're going to hear in this clip some of the things that they're struggling with in their negotiations for a first contract. But right now, the Teamsters have launched the first cannabis strike in the United States. And it's been going on now for, well, at this point, probably 15 days, something like that. It was around 10 days when this show actually hit the air. And let me tell you, folks, it sounds like a wacky business, the cannabis industry, but when they start talking to one of the workers, you'll find out they're still fighting for the same stuff everybody is fighting for at work.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN, powered by the National Coalition of Labor. Ken Edwards with the National Coalition of Labor. Ed Maher, National Coalition of Labor. Phil Davidson, Limping Phil Davidson.
Old Limping Phil.
Mid-America Carpenters. Phil, what happened? You got a boo-boo?
I was dunking a basketball.
No.
360 tomahawk.
No, you weren't.
Saving a bunch of drowning scouts from a river, raging river.
I'll give the story. Phil broke his ankle playing 16-inch softball.
Yes.
Well, it's slightly less heroic, Phil.
All right, listen, we have a cool show today because it's high time that the Teamsters Local 916 got a contract at their cannabis facility.
Okay.
So we're going to be talking about that, and they're on strike. We have with us Kyle Bollinger. He is vice president and a business agent for Teamsters Local 916 out of Springfield, right, Kyle? You guys out of Springfield?
That's correct.
Springfield, Illinois. And Vivian, who works for Ascend at the cultivation facility, right? It's a place where they grow all the marijuana that supplies stores, et cetera, et cetera. And Vivian's been working there for 2 years. So welcome to both of you guys. And the reason that this is newsworthy is you guys are on strike right now, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
All right. So give us a 2-second overview, Kyle, of organizing, contract negotiations, and what led you to go on strike.
Yeah. So we started with the transport drivers. They reached out, wanting to organize with the Teamsters. And once that started, it spread department by department. And we got voluntary card check recognition for the entire facility. So we are wall-to-wall Teamsters.
And you have not gotten a contract?
No, we have not.
Okay. And what are some of the sticking points?
Some of the key sticking points that are still out there, we have some mandatory protection language that goes into every Teamster contract. They're refusing to agree to that. They are also have refused to bargain anything over this insurance, their health insurance. Nothing on retirement. They won't consider any kind of Teamster pensions or any other retirement plans. They've flat out refused. Overtime is a huge issue here, so we still have that on the table.
These all sound very familiar to me. So, and this is an unfair labor practice strike, right? You're saying bad faith bargaining. Have they fired any union supporters, Kyle?
Yes. Yeah, this is a ULP strike, and our first ULP was actually just over that. One of our bargaining committee members that was at the table with us, the company terminated over a completely bogus issue, a non-issue for our facility, but wanted to send the message to everybody else that we will even fire your bargaining unit member.
So I mean, this is what I don't get, Kyle. Right? You're going to give us voluntary recognition, and then you're going to turn around and hire, a massive law firm. I'm not even going to give them the credence of naming them.
Don't do it.
I'm not going to.
Our listeners can probably guess who it is.
Yeah, but they make, what do they make? $900 an hour?
Yeah,
lawyers are making $900 an hour.
The company $900 an hour.
Yeah, more than Vivian makes per paycheck in 1 hour.
Yep.
Right? So so Vivian, you've been working there for 2 years, right?
Correct.
All right. What do you do?
I am an operator in the cart room, so I fill the cartridges and disposables and help package them.
And you make $19 and change an hour?
Correct.
And that's at the high end of the scale in Ascend, correct?
Yes, that is being an operator, and that department itself is already at a slightly higher pay scale for their base.
Okay, which is absurd. That's less than $20 an hour. You're talking about, basically slightly above the poverty line. Now let's keep drilling down, right? You pay for your insurance, and you pay a large portion for that insurance. So you told me off the air, you're paying $154 a paycheck. And
For
that is
single.
For single coverage, the bare bones worst coverage that they offer, correct?
Bare minimum dental and vision, yes.
Wow.
You know, you can't live on that.
No.
Okay? End of discussion, right? You simply can't live on that.
And they're a company with a $100 million market cap.
They're massive, right? They're not small. Drive around Chicago, you'll see their own dispensaries. You'll see them selling in other stores, their product. It's not a small company. Why won't they just get a contract? Like, why would you continue to spend $900 an hour on lawyers and pay your people wages that I got to imagine? Is there turnover there, Vivian? Like a lot of people turning over?
Oh, goodness. Since I started, it's been thousands. Quite literally, there's been thousands of people that have come through the door since I started.
All right. In 2 years, there's 300 people and thousands of people have turned over. Like, how is that a good business model?
Right.
Right? People can't.
It's like, I know, maybe pay your people better and they'll stick around.
You think so, Phil?
Maybe. I'm crazy.
So I heard. Or maybe sign a good union contract.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a big deal because in Teamsters land, Kyle, this is the first strike Teamsters, in my understanding, in a grow house, if you will, a cultivation center, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It's actually the first strike in the country for cannabis workers in the cannabis industry, period. So.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That's it. Oh, so whether it's retail or these grow houses, this is the first one ever.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we wish you guys well. We hope the strike gets over soon. I will tell you this once again. Much like a Starbucks or a Trader Joe's, you see these, progressive companies like, oh, we're a progressive cannabis company, and welcome to our humble blah blah blah
Utopia.
cannabis facility. Yeah, this is utopia, but we're going to treat our workers like garbage, just like any other company.
Yeah.
And we're going to pay them nothing and make them, constantly look for other jobs and fight
Spend
the
half
union.
their paycheck on their health care.
It's disingenuous.
Right.
It drives me absolutely ballistic.
Yeah, just to touch back on the healthcare, these plans are also catastrophic plans with $10,000 deductibles. So
$10,000.
If you're on the family, if you're on the family plan, you're paying $22,000 a year out of pocket before you ever even have any health insurance.
I mean, they're basically making it impossible to work there, right? If you have like one broken leg or one, something that happens, you're bankrupt. Right, you're living paycheck to paycheck, and if they're a high deductible plan like that, which is basically, like you're saying, it's catastrophic coverage, and I forgot to mention that, and I'm glad that you brought that up. That means that not only you're paying all this money for your premium, but if something happens to you, you're paying the first $10,000 of your medical bills. And guess what? You don't have $10,000. You know why? Because they're only paying you $19 an hour.
Yeah.
So it is a horrible catch-22.
I mean, not to mention I lost coverage on one of my prescriptions as well, which was an allergy medication, which I need because we're by live plants all day. So.
Good point. Right? Yeah.
I'm also actually allergic to cannabis. It makes me makes my eyes red, and I get very sleepy.
I quit smoking for a month. Ed, I quit smoking weed for a month once, and it was the longest afternoon of my life. Hey-oh. I know, listen, I could go on about weed jokes, but I'm not going to, because this is serious business. But listen.
It is, yeah.
Brother and sister, we really appreciate you guys taking the time to come on the show with us. If you are listening out there, feel free to call Ascend. Feel free to call the stores. Feel free to tell them that you're not going to shop there until these guys get a fair contract. I would strongly urge you to do that. Support these guys that they're fighting for, not just their workers down there, but they're fighting for the working class. This is what this is about right now. So kudos to Local 916. Vivian, we wish you well. Stick with it. And if there's anything else we can do, please let us know. Thank you so much for coming on the air. We're going to be back with more of the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN.
Hey, this is Gene Lance from Dallas, Texas, where we have the Workers Beat and the Workers Beat Extra. I'm proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network. More than 200 labor radio and podcast shows across the country and around the world.
All right. Next up, Pipe Up. I just wanted to say that.
It had a nice ring to it.
Who's got this? It's you, Patrick?
That's right. Well, on Pipe Up, General President of the United Association, Mark McManus, talks to 19-year-old UA Local 777 apprentice Charlie. And Charlie is an interesting case. He will be traveling to Shanghai this September to compete in something called the 2026 WorldSkills competition.
Yeah, that's like the Olympics for the skilled trades, isn't it?
I'm learning about it for the first time, but Charlie is really excited to be an apprentice pipe fitter. He loves being in the union, and he's going to tell us all about how he got into Skills USA and what he's expecting in Shanghai this September.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another edition of Pipe Up Podcast, UA Podcast with UA General President. That is me, Mark McManus, and got a very special guest. Every guest, I always say the same thing, but this is a generational guest, a young man here, UA brother, which I'm really excited to meet a little bit yesterday. Got a couple minutes with him. And it's Charlie Godey at a local 777. And Charlie, why are you in the Pipe Up podcast? Why are you gracing our presence? How old are you to begin with? And why are you sitting in this chair talking to me?
So I'm 19 years old, and I'm going to be the 2026 WorldSkills competitor for plumbing and heating in Shanghai.
Look at this. Shanghai, a Connecticut boy. When you growing up in Connecticut, did you ever venture over to New York, New Jersey, Boston, and now you're going to Shanghai since you're a UA member? Did you ever dream about ever going to Shanghai?
Never dreamed about it, and definitely never thought it was going to happen. But here we are.
You come into UA, and next thing you know, you're representing 400,000. No pressure.
Yeah,
no
at
pressure. 400,000 hardworking men and women. And you're going to WorldSkills competition, Shanghai. Let's start. We'll do a little background of you in a second. We'll go backwards, but let's let the listening audience understand what you're going to and why this is such a big deal. What is WorldSkills? Why don't you tell us about that?
So WorldSkills is a competition, held in. It's like the Olympics every year. It's a different country, but it's bringing the top competitors from every country in their respected skills, and just see what each country has to offer.
And how did you wind up as the UA's designee to do that?
So I started in Skills USA in Connecticut. That led me to nationals, placed second in the nation, and they take the top competitors from every 2 years to, be selected to go to the World's competition, and I was lucky enough to get selected.
That's fantastic, and it's just not a union event. And in fact, most of the people, are not union folks there as well. So
Yeah.
it's a good way to show off what the UA skill set is that we brag about all the time. And naturally, and you'll come back with a whole bunch more information, I presume, than you go there. But what we know a little bit about, Denmark or Germany, they do the apprenticeships, when they're 13, 14 years old, right, Charlie?
Yeah, I saw that. I did a preliminary competition in Austria, and just talking with the other competitors there, they've been doing it full time since they're 15 years old.
How'd you like Austria? Beautiful, right?
It was a beautiful country.
Never been, but it just looks absolutely gorgeous. Huh?
Oh yeah,
That's good.
Had a great time over there.
So when is the competition? What are we doing? You certainly you're going to do some practice, and you've been doing it, and you're a good hand to begin with.
Yeah.
Let's when's the date of the competition?
So it's going to start end of September. I fly out the 17th, so I think it's going to start around the 20th, 21st.
How did you get into that first USA training center? Were you going to school?
Yeah, so I went to LIT Grosso, which is a technical high school.
Like a VOTEC?
Yeah, so it's a VOTEC school,
Yep.
and Skills USA is a competition for all the VOTEC students. So all the schools come out, and they pick one person per trade that they got, and they send them to the competition. So it's all scattered out. All the trades go to their respective areas, and for plumbing, they brought us to local 777, and that's when I got my first real experience in the hall there. I got an older cousin who's in the local, so he was always been telling me, hey, when you graduate high school, you got to get into the local. It's the best thing ever. And I listened to him. I talked with Vinny a couple times when I was there, and that's when I figured out, like, this is the best place that I'm going to be.
Yeah, and you've been enjoying your third year now.
Yep.
So you've been enjoying your time.
Oh, yeah.
Classmates, brotherhood, as we say it, right?
Oh, the brotherhood has been great since day one. Support all the way around. Apprentices, journeymen, foremen, they're all supporting each other.
Yeah, for the folks, again, the folks out there listening, and me being of a certain age or the older generation now, and it's hard for me to say that, is sometimes your generation, and I think it's with every generation, we might not like the kids' music or how they dress or what they do, with their lives and the knocks that you guys get. But man, I'm a firm believer, and you're reinstituting it in me. Our good young guys are unbelievably good.
Well, thanks again for having me.
Yeah,
had a great time here.
Excellent. Appreciate you. Thanks, Tommy, for coming in. Thanks.
Hey, this is Carmen Rodriguez from El Desvío. At LACLA, we are proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network, with more than 200 labor radio shows and podcasts from across the country and around the world. The Labor Radio Podcast Network, where working people speak. Find us at laborradionetwork.org.
All right, guys, we are going to need a bigger podcast. That's just setting up Patrick to talk about the latest Labor Notes podcast, right, Patrick?
This is a pretty funny one this week, to be honest. On the Labor Notes podcast, Natasha, Danielle, and Sindhu have each chosen some of their favorite summer blockbuster movies, and they're explaining why these films might be about sharks or creepy families or talking toys, but they're really about organizing. On the segment that you're listening to, Sindhu, who doesn't often appear on the show, is going to talk about Toy Story.
You're listening to the Labor Notes Podcast, our weekly show on rank and file news and organizing tactics. I'm Natasha Laney-Ullman, a staff writer at Labor Notes.
And I'm Danielle Smith, an organizer at AMC Theaters.
Danielle, don't blow our cover.
Oh my God, right. I'm Danielle Smith, an organizer at Labor Notes. For legal purposes, this is not a podcast about organizing your local movie theater.
We at Labor Notes HQ are gearing up for a packed summer of trainings, reporting on organizing campaigns and tactics, and practicing our Nicole Kidman impressions.
And what better way to celebrate the changing seasons than refusing to touch grass and instead sitting in a dark room alone with the feeling of cold leather or sometimes weird velvet on your skin, watching a classic summer blockbuster.
So, Sindhu, what'd you pick?
Okay, for my summer pick, I'm going to fudge it a little bit and talk about Toy Story 5, but by bringing in past Toy Stories, whether they were released over the summer or not, so that we can do this without spoilers or like using the pod to actively promote movies that are out right now.
Anyway, I do feel like we're probably covered on Toy Story spoilers though, because I'm pretty sure the premise has basically been the same for about 30 years now. It's that the toys can talk and say what they really think when people aren't looking, right?
Not a space ranger. I'm just a toy, a stupid little insignificant toy.
And the children keep having birthdays and growing up?
You're honestly both right, and I don't know what Pixar put in this particular formula to make this such a cry fest, but the mere passing of time plus toys sharing their hopes and dreams for their kid and for themselves equals me absolutely sobbing at the AMC every time. But actually, I think we know what the secret ingredient is, and it's another safe spoiler. It's that the toys just know that their best hope for survival is to organize.
I will say it's kind of interesting that for all the sidelining of overt labor themes in inspirational pop culture narratives, studio executives can't seem to keep a good collective action storyline down.
The toys of Toy Story are also at their literal workplace.
Yeah, and when you put it like that, it feels inevitable that these toys would be putting pretty much every organizing lesson to use from Secrets of a Successful Organizer, the Labor Notes book, and one of our core trainings. For one thing, they maintain really good relationships with each other, and they hold regular meetings with clear agendas. They were obviously eavesdropping while their humans were taking Danielle's how to have an effective meeting workshop. And Natasha, to your point about them being at work, they actually do call these staff meetings. Side note to Disney Pixar, we know they're union meetings. Anyway, the toys regularly talk about working conditions and what to do about them, like threats from unruly pets, kids who don't play nice, kid birthdays and Christmases, and of course, automation and layoffs, which is a big theme in the latest installment.
That's not a spoiler. The trailer features a new froggy kid tablet character that represents the screen addiction dominating the lives of kids who are shown to have surrendered their imaginations and real-life socializing skills, and therefore toys, to the hypnotic pull of their machine overlords.
So do the toys talk about all that in the movie? I'll give you the roundabout answer first, and then I'll reveal that the answer is yes. So the toys do lay out the hype around these devices, that it's how most kids make friends now. It helps their learning, it helps them build connections and all of that. And then they spend the bulk of the movie's runtime picking that apart. There are some genuinely moving scenes in which the toys effectively question whether kids are really making friends through these devices or if they're only using it to bully one another in these sociopathic online ways. So yeah, the toys actually do exactly what Keith writes about.
Speaking of standing up to bullies, I feel like I remember a really pointed scene in the first Toy Story, which came out in 1995, that portrays an actual march on the boss, which is when a group of workers confront the boss at work with a list of demands around things that they really need, and show that the unit's strength is behind those demands.
Yeah, there's a moment in the first movie where a group of them get together to tell a troubled kid to stop breaking and exploding them. And the way the toys do it is almost like straight out of Secrets of a Successful Organizer. They make a plan, they practice it and everything. Woody, the cowboy sheriff toy, voiced by Tom Hanks, even says this before the action, quote, "We're going to have to break a few rules, but if it works, it'll help everybody." Thank you to, checking my notes, media conglomerate Disney for this beautiful tribute to creativity, friendship, and toy-led movement organizing.
The Labor Notes Podcast is produced by Natasha Lena Ullman, Cindy Sundar, and myself. Our title music was written and performed by our coworker, Keith Brower-Brown. See you next week. Solidarity, y'all.
Hey, this is Simon Sapper from the Union Jews podcast. We're proud to be part of the Labour Radio Podcast Network with more than 200 Labour Radio shows and podcasts from across the USA and around the world. The Labour Radio Podcast Network, where working people speak. Find us at laborradionetwork.org.
All right, and here's another one that we're going to borrow for the Labor History Today podcast. This is an episode of The Green and Red.
You guys don't even really need to generate much content for the Labor History Today podcast. You just sit back and there's so much great labor history content in the network. It's like, okay, who did something this week? Look at that.
It's good stuff, you got to recognize, you got to appreciate.
This is the Green and Red podcast, and you're going to meet someone you probably haven't heard of before. This is independent historian James Cheney, who has written a book called The Little Falls Textile Strike of 1912 to 1913. It's his first book. It's an important but often forgotten and neglected moment in labor history. It's a strike on the part of mostly women mill workers, somewhere in that region of upstate New York that you're familiar with, Chris. And Scott and Bob invited James onto the show, and they really dig into many of the details on this strike in Little Falls and how radicals from around the country were attracted to this occasion and became involved. It's an important moment in labor history.
Welcome to the Silky Smooth Sounds of the Green and Red podcast. I'm your co-host, Scott Parkin, in Berkeley, California. And as always, I am joined by
Bob Bazanko from where the Little Steel Strike got violent in 1937. It's appropriate. You'll see in a minute.
So on with the show, we're going to be talking with James Cheney, who is an independent historian focusing on the labor movement, radical politics, and community action in New York's Mohawk Valley. And he is the author of a new book called Women, Immigrants, and the Working Class in Little Falls, New York, the Textile Strike of 1912-1913. James, welcome to the Green and Red Podcast.
Thank you for having me. And just I have to correct everybody on this. My last name is pronounced Cheney. Everybody gets it wrong, so you're not in any trouble.
No relation to the former vice president.
Right? No, thank God.
And the book is a nonfiction book that reconstructs and analyzes the events of the Little Falls textile strike, chronicles the plight of working class immigrant women from Southern and Eastern Europe and their fight for better wages. And then also the story involves the industrial workers of the world and the local socialist party. So we're going to kind of get into that. But maybe the first question is, what drew you to this topic? Why did you write this book? Why did you want to write this book?
This started as my senior thesis when I was in undergrad back in 2020, which I graduated right when COVID was starting. So that was awesome. But so the theme we had to work with was race, class, gender, and constitutionalism in the Mohawk Valley. So I wanted to find something that could encompass all that, but also still be within, which there is all sorts of intersections, but that also led to my interest in socialist history, labor history. And I think I just searched strike in the Mohawk Valley, Central New York strike, something like that on Google. And just after a couple of pages, I came across an article from Robert Schneider on the strike that was published in like 1979. And then an article from The Industrial Worker by Brendan Malaskis-Dunn, he's a current IWW member. So that just snowballed from there. And then I got the job I was mentioning earlier off camera that allowed me access to a lot more archives and different connections and whatnot. And it just kind of snowballed from there into this whole big project.
Could maybe talking about Little Falls, could you maybe just give a little bit of background of the area and the local politics?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was industrialized. They had various textile mills. I believe they had a couple of bicycle factories and a few other things. I'm sure there are things I'm missing, but it was relatively industrialized for the area. It's in, if you know where the Adirondack region is in the state, or people nowadays know where, maybe because it's big in college basketball, Syracuse University. It's an hour from there or so. And at the time, the ethnic background or the makeup, there were a lot of U.S.-born people, a lot of Irish immigrants working in the city. But in the textile mills specifically, it was mostly people from Southern and Eastern Europe, Italy, modern-day Poland, Slovenia, a good handful of other countries. And that's where when they immigrated there, they ended up forming these enclaves and were living on the south side of the city. So they were segregated from U.S.-born workers, Irish workers, because of the Mohawk River that ran through the city.
One of the key themes you bring up, obviously, is the conditions that will eventually lead to this labor conflict. But even before that, right, the conditions in which these people work and in which they live, which are really very sordid. Do you want to just describe what it was like in their work lives and then what they came home to, how they lived, the deprivation, the precarity they had?
Oh, it was awful from everything that I've read. In the factories, they didn't have plumbing. They're working with all these different chemicals and whatnot in the textile factories, and it's dusty, and they're coming home, or at least during there, getting covered in dirt and chemicals and stuff. They didn't have protective gear. The foremen were very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very unkind to them, is a nice way to put it. They treated them how a lot of people treated immigrants back then, and even today, as we see. But the work environment was horrid. The pay was awful. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I think on average they maybe made $7.50 a week. And even then, the numbers are skewed because when they recorded the wages, the New York State Board of Mediation and Arbitration, they also included the wages of management and whatnot. So they were making less than the $7.50. And at home, the tenement housing that they lived in was primarily owned, again, by the same people who owned the mills. So they were cramped and crowded. They lacked a lot of decent ventilation, so they were very damp, and the only real warmth came from using the stove. Bathrooms, the few that did have actual bathrooms were prone to flooding or were also used as storage areas. And because of this congestion and this overcrowding, a lot of people who were relatively healthy they were staying in the same room or sleeping in the same bed as people sick with things like tuberculosis, which that's horrid.
And just to be so we're clear, most of the people who work in the mills are women, right?
Mostly. There's definitely a male population, but I think by and large, at least in terms of the lower paying jobs that they would do, it was primarily women as young as I think like 14.
Is there anybody kind of organizing that walkout, or they just finally one day say we've had enough?
I think it was the latter. Yeah, and in that very early stage, I don't think there was any particular person who said we need to band together, we need to walk out, we need to do something. Very early on, once the strike gets going, we see, as again, we'll probably discuss it more. We see the Schenectady Socialists come in and the IWW, but in those very early, like that first week, I don't recall ever seeing anything about a specific individual in the mills or even Helen Schloss at that point yet getting involved in trying to push for a strike.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
On your first book. I hope it's the first of many.
Yeah. I have at least 2 others planned.
Good. Excellent. That's great. Folks, we've been talking with James Cheney.
Yeah.
Who's the author of Women, Immigrants, and the Working Class Battle in Little Falls, New York, 1912 to 1913.
We are now into shows you should know. So Randy and James Martinez dive into the latest labor and political news, and then James Herrera joins the show to discuss the growing militancy among public sector workers on the Worker Power Hour.
Next up, Josh discusses the current state of labor inside Florida with McKenna on Next Generation Carriers.
I'm really looking forward to listening to that one because I am currently in Florida, and there's a teachers union office around the corner from the apartment I'm staying in. They've got a big sign in front that says I'm sticking with the union. So labor and Florida, it's an interesting mix.
You are a Florida man.
I am so not a Florida man.
All right, next, Max talks with a panel of survivors of Quebec's Lac-Mégantic rail disaster and Ohio's East Palestine rail disaster and asks if your town will be next on Working People.
Mark talks with UFCW members Amy, David, Eric, and Wes, and Teamsters for a Democratic Union member Tyler about worker power and essential workers for democracy on My Labor Radio.
Finally, Labor History Today turns from the great men of history to the voices of the people with Frederick Douglass's 1852 speech, What to the Slave is the 4th of July, formed by James Earl Jones and the People's 250 Project.
I had to include this. Guys, I know you both work on Labor History Today. You don't often play that up on the weekly, but this was a great episode. And with the 4th of July having just passed, really important to look at how working people have contributed to the growth of the United States. Not just white guys in wigs.
And actually, again, here in Rochester, folks may or may not know that Rochester was, I believe, close to the last stop on the Underground Railroad. It's where Frederick Douglass lived for quite a while. He published the North Star. There's also a statue of Douglass not too far from where my folks live in the South Wedge. It's actually right across the street from where his house was. And on that statue at the base is a plaque with some of the words from that speech that we used in Labor History Today. So it's all connected, folks.
Yeah, there are some people who ask why there is such a focus on slavery in labor history. But let me tell you, it was all about people being forced to work with no freedom, no dignity, no pay. There is not a more labor history story than the enslavement of people.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for this week's Labor Radio Podcast Weekly.
Your roundup from 200 plus shows in the Labor Radio Podcast Network.
You can find links to every show at laborradionetwork.org and follow #LaborRadioPod on Blue Sky, X, Facebook, and Instagram.
Tell us what you think. Give us a email, info@laborradionetwork.org. Love to hear from you. We read them all and respond.
And hey, support the network with union-made t-shirts, 2 colors, all sizes. Let me tell you, they are soft and they will wick the sweat from your body when you are standing out in 90-degree plus heat. Find them at laborradionetwork.org.
This podcast is recorded under a SAG-AFTRA collective bargaining agreement.
Hell yeah, it is.
And it's produced by all three of us, Chris, Patrick, and Harold. Stay active.
Stay tuned to your local labor radio show or podcast.
And we'll see you all again next week.
And cue the music.